And we're back today with another edition of Southern Dirt Motorsports, the original Dirt Motorsports podcast. And we're here at the Northfield Vineyards in Sparta, Tennessee, thanks to Mike's wife. And to my far left is Mike Lennon and Dusty. And then, of course, next to him is Gary Lawrence. Gary's been to all these old dirt tracks, all over the whole Southeast. And today we're going to have the pleasure of getting to talk with Mike Weeks. Mike is just, there's people that race, and Mike Weeks is a racer. That's just the way it is. And how'd you get the name Milkman?
Well, it's kind of funny. I don't know if some people might not know, but Buddy Norwood from Knoxville actually passed away. He started calling me that back before I ever started racing. He was coming around hanging with my dad and done a lot of work for us and helped us. And he called I think more or less I like the candy bar Milky Ways. Well, he called me that a couple of times. He said, "Well, no, I ain't got a better name for you. We're just going to call you Milkman." So I've been called a whole lot worse through the racing career, so I'll end up just going with that.
There you go. I've always wondered about that.
Yeah, that's the truth. I've had a lot of people that asked me that too, through the years, but no, it was actually Buddy Norwood.
Well, your dad was Lester Weeks. He was a legendary race car builder, fabricator here in East Tennessee. And I mean, was he like the first generation of the Weeks?
Yeah, actually, his dad didn't race. No, but he went with his uncle, or I want to try to get this right, with Larry Breeden, and they run asphalt over Smoky Mountain when it was, and he was just a kid. He'd let him go to races with him, and he just got to fooling around with it. He hung sheetrock for a living until he got to went to work at Goddard's. Built the first Warrior race car that ever left there.
Oh, really?
When I was in business, when he went to work there, they was buying all their cars from CJ.
Okay.
And having them brought there. They was a dealer. And my dad's like, we can, which everybody, CJ was very well represented in all of the areas. And so they got to building cars there and worked there for, gosh, I don't know how long. He worked off commission, and he was like, "I got to get jobs done, because that's the only way I'm making a living." So started building cars there. About 92 or 93, went to work at JT's, worked off and on there, helped them, and then kind of started doing his own thing. And I remember being a kid, and when I was young, I probably didn't realize it, but he would go to work, come home, and get in his pickup truck, and sometimes, fortunately, I get to go with him, and he'd go scale somebody's car or adjust the valves or just trying to help a lot of people. And I remember we was living in the first house that I remember growing up out, didn't have a garage. Well, he would come home from work and we didn't have a lot of money. He just, he worked. And my mom, like everybody else, but he was building his garage. He couldn't afford nobody to lay the brick or the block at the garage. When he would come home, he had an 81 pickup truck, that's all he ever had, shine the headlights on the garage and lay block until it was time to go to bed and get up and go to work next morning. So
he was like a lot of these guys, just hard working, positive attitude,
hard-headed.
Very
hard-headed. Fortunately, I was blessed. I tell people this all the time. I was blessed to be his kid, because I wouldn't have got to do half the things I've done.
Right.
But now, he didn't ever cut me no slack. Right. I promise you that.
Before he got into car building business, did he have a race car and actually drive himself?
He never drove himself. He did one time, and this was way before I got driving. He went to maybe Greenback Racetrack, Old Greenback. Bob talked about that. He said, I got out, the rocks was hitting me in the helmet, and I got out, so this ain't for me. And he said, so that's why I had you. But I never claimed to be a race car driver. He put that to me, I guess. But no, he didn't ever drive. He had several people through the years.
But he built the first car he ever had.
Yeah. Actually, back then people just build their own cars, in the wintertime, and he didn't have a tubing bender. Kerr had just got tubing bender, and that was when it was coming out. And he went and asked JT, he's like, hey, I don't have one of them. Where do I get them? He said, well, I bought this one, so he told him what it was. He couldn't afford it. So he had a buddy that had a muffler shop that had a tubing bender. Well, he originally tried to go borrow it, but he was going to bring it back, every day, so that was kind of hard. So one weekend, he just mitered everything together.
Oh, yeah.
David Bryant told me after, he passed away, he was telling me the story about it. He said that car looked better than any store-bought, tubing bender car there was. He said Lester could weld that good and mitered that whole car together.
Wow.
That's pretty impressive to me.
It is. That was great.
Yeah. So, yeah, he could do anything.
So even to begin with, he was a great fabricator.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, apparently so.
So who drove for him? What did you
Rocky drove quite a
Yeah,
bit.
Rocky drove.
In the beginning.
Yeah, I really don't. Being my first vague remembrance of anybody driving for him was Rocky.
Oh, okay.
Me being young. I showed you that picture earlier. Me being
Yeah.
about 9 or 10 year old. Going to Smoky Mountain.
But now there's another guy.
Marty Calloway drove for him.
No, there's somebody, I can't remember. He didn't drive it long, but it's
Yeah.
when they had the Wedge car, the red
Klein
22.
Gregory.
Klein Gregory.
That was his cousin.
Oh, yeah.
And they got to building them phase 2 bodies, and
Oh,
Dave
yeah.
Hensley,
Yeah.
a couple other
Yeah.
guys helped him. But yeah, there for a long time, Rocky drove for him probably longer than anybody. And then Rocky got, it got to where people wanted 30%.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, Dad it was hard.
Yeah.
So I remember he got his car loaded one winter, and he got back then they put their name on top of the car, his driver's license. Well, he just got Calvin Michaels to put a question mark because he didn't know. I've heard stories. I remember being a kid, and he'd go to the racetrack and just take his race car and not have a driver and just walk around the pits, and if he could find one, he could, and if he couldn't, he'd just load it up.
Were these still frame cars? They
Yeah,
weren't cheap
yeah.
frame cars.
I got a good story that was told to me. He'd built a new car, and him and a friend of his, Gary Jones, took it to Atomic. Zeke Buchanan was down for Bill Rogers. They all lived there in Friendsville, so they was all good friends. Well, Daddy had unloaded his car and was sitting there, and I really don't want to say who the guy was that he tried to get to drive for. I don't know, because I don't want to cause no trouble. But anyway, the guy was a pretty good race car driver and didn't have a car there at the racetrack. So my dad went up to him and asked him, he said, would you be interested in driving my car tonight? So the driver walks around my dad's car and kind of looks at it. He said, no, I'm retired. Walks off. Okay. Well, Zeke qualifying and blows a motor. So Daddy asked Zeke, said, hey, you gonna drive my car since you ain't got no motor? So they unloaded my dad's car back out. Zeke's the one to tell me the story. 17 or 18 cars start to feature, and he starts the last because he didn't get to qualify. He runs second. Wow. He had never drove my dad's car. He told Daddy, he said, that's a good car. So next week, actually, he told Zeke, he said, if you don't have a motor, next week, drive my car again. Well, short story, he gets the motor back. So they go to the Atomic next week, same scenario. My dad, no driver. The guy that was retired the week before walks up with his bag to the side of my dad's car. Zeke sees it happen. Zeke's parked next to him, and he said, your dad's sitting on the back of his trailer. This guy walks up, sets his bag down next to your dad's car. He said, I thought, if he drives Lester's car, we're in trouble. Because this guy's just very, very well race car driver. He says, Lester, you got a driver now? I said, no, I don't. He said, well, I'll drive it. And my dad stood up, looked him right in the eye and said, you're retired.
Yeah.
My dad's car sitting on that trailer the rest of the night.
Yeah.
That's just how
Yeah.
Mike knowed him.
He had
was
morals, standards.
Yes, absolutely.
Man of his word.
Yeah, man of his word for sure. But that was a pretty cool story. It was told to me, and I could see him doing that.
Well, at that time, Atomic was the racetrack. It was just like a hotbed of all the racers. I mean, you had Buddy Rogers,
Yep.
Corum,
Yep.
H.E. Vineyard, all these guys, and I mean, and like you had Smoky Mountain also. Did y'all race at Smoky Mountain also?
Yeah, when Rocky drove for him, they'd go to Smoky Mountain on Friday nights, of course. The Ogle's on both.
So Smoky Mountain was a Friday night.
Yes, at that
At
time.
that time.
Yeah, and
Ogle,
I
the
guess,
Ogle, okay.
I mean, and y'all could correct me, probably mid-'80s.
Yeah, mid to late 80s, yeah.
They go to Smoky Mountain on Friday night, go to Atomic on Saturday. And that's just where he mostly raced. Rocky was pretty successful at Smoky Mountain.
It was.
Run okay at Atomic, but I think, there again, I think Daddy's equipment he had a hard time even racing one night some nights. Well, they all did.
Yeah.
It was hard. Still today it's hard.
Well, at that time, J.T. Kerr was in the salvage yard business, right?
Yep.
Junkyard
Yep.
business.
Yep.
And then he got into the racing business, right?
Yep.
Well, he was like a Howe
Uh-huh.
dealer,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Okay. And so, were these cars Howe cars, or?
Yeah, I think my dad kind of built most of his cars. I think the first store-bought car he ever had was a Howe car that he got from JT, I think.
Was it that blue chassis car?
Could have
with
been,
red?
yeah. And they put a wedge, that's when they got to run the big sideboards, and it was blue frame, like maybe, and then it had a silver body on it maybe or something. I got some pictures at my house.
I think
wish
maybe
I brought-
red with silver numbers
Yeah,
or something.
yeah, maybe so. But yeah, he didn't, he bought that car, and then I think got a Masterbuilt car later on, and Marty started driving for him, I think, maybe around the Masterbuilt time.
But
yeah.
you talk about the wedge cars. That was just a great time, I think.
Yeah,
When people bought, how much was Lexan sheet?
No, it wasn't.
It wasn't much.
No.
But you could take a 4x8 sheet
yeah.
of Lexan. You could make a race car out of it.
If they went back
Bunch
to
of
that
junk.
wedge nose,
Yeah,
that's what I'm telling how much money that would save the racers today. They
Yeah.
could do it next weekend.
Yeah.
Go back to that wedge nose.
Yeah.
Because them things are what, $500 when you
Oh,
get
yeah,
the flopper?
yeah, flopper and all, probably 500.
Just the nose
Yeah,
around
yeah,
five,
just the
yeah.
nose. Yeah.
But see, they can make one.
No.
But it's really
Easy.
amazing how much a sheet of Lexan down the side kind of acts like a rudder.
Yeah.
When you go in the corner and the car wants to go sideways, it just straightens itself
Yeah.
back up.
Yeah.
Thus, you can hold it wide
Right.
open.
Yeah.
Pretty much all the way around.
I've
right?
told several people, and I've told a lot of you guys, I think I was very fortunate. My age group, I grew up in a pretty cool area of racing.
Absolutely.
Around my home and Crossville. And,
Yeah.
I remember coming to Crossville being a kid, watching BK.
Yeah.
Them cars, them was beautiful cars to me. The wedge noses, the sideboards. A lot of kids now, you see a picture of them, they probably wouldn't even know what that,
Right.
what that was.
I remember
Unfortunately,
standing back during even the Camaros, it had to be in the late 70s, and standing in the infield at Atomic, and those guys shifted, like under a car, they shifted on the starts, and that was really, I couldn't believe it,
Yeah.
it was just really something to watch. That was back before Burt transmissions
Well,
and all that kind of thing.
you know,
Steve Smith was racing then.
yes, JT would actually speed shift a lot when he'd be leading the feature, and he would actually, on a restart, would really hurt you.
JT Kerr was a great racer.
Yeah, he'd get you bogged down and just speed shift that thing. I think he had big and take a bunch of just where the old Muncie where it just had third and fourth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even his grandson, J.T. Kerr,
Yeah.
that's who we're talking about.
Yeah.
His grandson, Tommy, he still races today. It was Biggin and Roger and Cindy were his kids.
Yep.
And he was like a warehouse. He
Yeah.
wasn't just a speed shop.
No,
he was big
absolutely
time.
not. Yeah, he done really good for himself and helped a lot of racers. I know he helped my family a lot.
And
He
you said,
helped me too.
yeah, you
Sure
said your dad actually worked for J.T.
Yeah,
at one time.
back and forth. In wintertime, if it got slow at her shop, JT would call him. I've worked there.
I wasn't down if Lester wasn't there when they built maybe the first or second Stinger. BK bought either the first or second
Yeah.
one.
Yeah,
And that's when I was driving for
Yeah.
him. We won a lot of races.
them, JT had a very good business. Back then, I mean, really, you had to go there to get anything.
Yeah.
I mean, really, probably.
You said he also worked at Warrior.
Yeah, oh yeah, he worked at Goddard's at Warrior for Sanford and them for, 10, 11, maybe.
And he really put Track Star on the map
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
Yeah.
He bought,
Yeah.
Mike Bowen come up and brought a car and actually had got one built, and he come to us and he was like, I can't sell this thing. the wheels looked pretty bad. Him and Dad, Sanford actually got the deal kind of, because Mike Bowen called Sanford and said, hey, is there anybody up in that area that can, he said, I'll tell you who'll do it. He'll do them. He said, I'll do you a good job. And we built about 200 cars for Mike Bowen.
Wow.
My dad got sick, had an aneurysm. Then I done several cars myself, while he was sick. But we had a pretty good, successful run with Mike Bowen. Great guy. Mike was good to work for. But it was just long distance. We was building 2 cars a week. Nothing pre-bent, nothing already on the shelf. This was 2 guys, me and my dad, and my Uncle Ricky would work for us, build a complete car, 2 a week.
See, that amazes me so much that, we talk to guys all the time that back when you was talking about frame cars, that raced in any kind of division back then, that built their own cars.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the roll bars, they built the engines, they built every piece of it. So, that amazes me that you can just take a pile of tubing and build a race car and then go win a race.
It's
with it.
funny.
So, these guys are talented.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like I said, my dad, he could build a frame. Well, when I raced, me and him raced together, we built our own cars. We put our own interiors in. We put our own bodies on. At one time was building our own spindles. He built our motors. We would get the work we'd get the machine work done, but he would put every motor we had together. Me and him raced for probably 20 years together, and I had maybe 1 motor failure. So that said a lot for him.
Yeah.
I mean, really, he was a good fabricator. Probably one of the best I ever. Tony Ford, them guys, good fabricators. There's a lot of good fabricators, but there's not many people out there now in this era that can do all the things that he could do.
But he blessed Mike. Mike,
Yeah.
don't forget, there says one of the best fabricators in the country.
I tell people all the time, he bred it in me that you can't buy everything because he couldn't afford it. He said, son, if you're going to do this, you got to do it. You can't. It's just like he taught me when I was probably 8 or 9 years old to read a measuring tape. And I said, well, I think to myself, my gosh, why would you make me read a measuring tape or learn numbers at 8 or 9 years old? He told me, he said, anything you do in life has numbers in it. When I got older,
He was right.
he was right. My dad, he might have been hard on me, but he done it for me.
Right.
And no, I'm right.
And I guarantee he's proud of you.
Oh, yeah.
Mike.
When he got
proud of
sick, it was weird. He was proud of me at the end.
Absolutely. So Lester Weeks' race shop was always behind your house?
Yeah, oh yeah, still there.
Yeah.
I'll tell you another story about Lester. I bought that jig from him, the Track Star jig. We was selling some sports cars and Tony Ford cars. And
Yep.
I was just we was going to have a jig there for fit everything. I thought you could just change the front hookups maybe and, have one for everything. Well, I went over there with the money in the trailer and we started loading up. And Lester said, Mike, it's a Track Star jig, don't you? I said, yeah, Lester, I know, but we're going to change it up. He said, listen, you can build a jig for one a whole lot easier than you take this jig and change it up. He said, that's a bad idea. And I had the money in my pocket. He was wanting to sell it, but he was so good. He was so good. Just, talked me right out of it because he knowed I was making a mistake.
Yeah, he tried to save more money than anybody else saw. Yeah. Or he would try to save people. We had customers. We had a guy one time, it was at the end of the year. He called him and wanted a body cut out. One more race. And this guy, he was like, you don't need a body, there's one more race, get through the winter. Trying to save. It'd been very easy for us to build this guy a body and make money. This guy called him about 2 days later and said, so you're not going to build me a body? He said, no, you don't need a body right now. It was Brian Holmby. And Brian was just a hard-headed guy too, but he was like, Lester, Bill, he said, Brian, it's saving you money. He said, if you don't do it, I'll let Goddard's do it, just kind of. So we cut him a body out for one race. Dad said, I try to save you money. Mm-hmm. But that's how we raced.
Mm-hmm.
We had to race that way, and I'll tell you a good story about him. You kind of talk about how hard-nosed he was. I was about 17-year-old and been racing him. Terrible. Just a kid in the way. Go to Atomic, run 25 lap feature, and I might have run 10 of those. because I got lapped the other 15, you know. And he would always just tell me, if you finish, we'll wash it. You can wash it. But I had to wash it. Nobody washed my car.
Right.
Well, I run like 10th or 11th when I thought I'd done something. So Sunday or Monday, my car needed to be washed by Monday. Monday rolled around, I thought, I come home from school and I was like, I'll get it tomorrow. Tuesday, I'll get it tomorrow. Well, Wednesday I come in the garage and that was, Daddy wanted Wednesday to be like maintenance day, check bolts, just grind. We didn't know about grinding tires at that time, I guess. But I come in, it was on Jackson, and it was clean. I went, well, this worked out pretty good for me. You know, didn't wash it. I'll get to race. Saturday, I get my bag, and then we're down the garage, load the car, pull it up on top of the hill. We go in the house. That time to go to the races, when my dad's cousin would go to race with us. His name was Johnny. Get my bag, I go up to the door, and he was like, don't need that bag. I'm thinking, huh? I said, what do you mean you don't need this bag? He said, you don't need that tonight. I said, we're going to the race, ain't we? Yeah. You're going too. I said, yeah, I know, I've got my bag. He said, no, you don't need the bag. He said, you're not driving it. Johnny is. And I went, why is Johnny? He said, because he washed it. And he had never drove a race car in his life. So I go to the racetrack and watch him do this. Well, guess what? Sunday morning about 8:30, Mike's down there watching this thing because I didn't like that, you know, but that just, he wanted me to take pride in what he gave me.
Absolutely.
You know.
Was he your first car owner?
Yeah.
Or did you actually?
No, he was my first car owner, and I drove, after a while, I drove for him for my whole career up until he got to where he saw that the way we had big motor stuff at the end. We was going to races and there was $1 million teams. We wasn't $1 million team, and my dad said, I'm not going to the races to run 10. I go to the races to win. It's getting too much for me money-wise. I'm quitting. I drove for Tim Kyle a little while. Drove for Gerald Law, which was peg leg, up in
Kingsport,
Bulls Gap area. Drove for him a little while. Now Dad always went, he was supportive. Then I quit racing, just quit driving, and went to work at Wolfpack with Randall Chuck. Randall taught me a lot of things. There's two men, my dad and Randall, very inspirational to me.
Well, he had a great teacher himself, Gene.
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't meet him, but me and Randall were real close. He told me a lot of stories about him. So I worked there, learned a lot of stuff that I didn't, kind of got out of the loop. Was working there and started helping Billy Glenn Kennedy out of Morgan County on Schubert Funeral Home and his boy Drew. And I've been there for about 5 or 6 years and helped them. And then I get to fortunate, Billy Glenn's more or less kind of give me a car to race. And I've been very fortunate and blessed because I couldn't do it.
So you work full-time there?
Full-time with them, yeah. Been there, be 6 years in June. Some of the greatest people, Terry Goins, he knows them. Some of the best people that I've ever been around.
So when you did get started, you helped Lester build that race car, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. Actually, the car we got, Skip and Ronnie gave it to my dad, and the front clip was bent on it. It was a Masterbuilt car. And they said, if y'all fix it, I give him something.
Skip used to race, Skip Art.
He drove
used to race your
my
dad's
dad's
cars.
cars, yeah. Give us that car, the frame, just the interior, and going back to fabricating. We got that car, got it fixed. It had the cockpit in it. My dad put the first piece of interior that goes to the right side over. He put it in to get it square. He said, I don't care if it takes you all winter. You're going to put the interior in this car. I don't care if you screw up aluminum. Don't screw up too much because I can't afford to get much. But I worked that thing of evening. It looked, you could throw a cat through some of the holes, probably as CJ would say, you know. But it taught me to do it. And I can do them now. I've been very fortunate. I feel like I can do just what he did.
Most
I can put
everybody.
interior in, bodies, put a car together, build a frame.
That's unique nowadays.
Yeah, it is.
You know, that you can do that.
It
But
is.
it's hands-on.
That's hands-on. That's why, you know, my dad taught me
That's the
that.
difference.
That's why, and these kids that are racing now, are fortunate enough to have good parents, a lot of money, they get stuff store-bought. They don't have to do it.
Yeah.
Like, he done it, I've done it, you've done it. All these, there's a lot of generations that's done it. And I've, you know, sometimes I think, man, why did I do this?
Yeah.
That's all I've ever done. That's all I know. And I try to take pride in anything that I do because I knew that's what my dad done.
Yeah.
You know, so, yeah, it's just hard work. And it's hard.
Absolutely, it still
And
is today.
Yeah.
Even if you have the stuff, it's still hard work.
And I tell people all the time, if you're lazy, racing is not for you.
That's right.
I mean, because it's work.
Yeah, and if you're successful, it really involves people around you too. Because
Absolutely.
you almost have to be selfish to be successful,
Yep.
you know. We done it hard for 26 years.
Yep.
We raced a car. I'd come home, eat supper, go work on the car every night. And like you said, so there's race car drivers and then there's racers like we do.
Yep.
That's the best way to
But
describe it.
you got, race cars always been, in our time, on up through your time, you gotta stay with it.
That's right.
You gotta live it.
That's right. Yeah, you better.
You gotta live it.
And it takes time away from your family,
It does.
your kids. You know, the older I get, I see, you know, I've been fortunate. I got a boy that's 24. I got to do a lot of things with him. But I remember dragging him around the racetracks all over the country. And when I got older, I thought, man, you know, it's probably selfish of me.
Mm.
But that was a memory that me and my dad made together all them years. And I've got to make it with him. And I've got 2 grandkids. They don't, well, one's 13, one's 4. They don't care. They got too much stuff. I mean, really, they got Nintendo, Xbox, whatever. I didn't have it, but I did. But I wanted to be with my dad. That's
great.
it.
That's great.
You know, that's it.
And that race car was it.
That's right. That's how me and him bonded.
Yeah.
And all the fundamental things that he taught you.
Oh, yeah.
Sticking with you
Yeah.
today and
And
pays off.
yeah, even though, you know, he's gone, I'll do something. I'll think, what would he do?
Yeah.
You know, I'll think,
Mm-hmm.
what would he do? How would he do this? Because you can't call him.
Right.
You just got to think, what would he do? What would he want you to do?
And your race is a testament to the legacy
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
Lester Weeks
Yeah.
there. You know,
I feel like it. Now, he never raced, but, you know, he never won, unfortunately, he never won a point championship until 1998 when he won, me and him won one at the top. They come close with Marty and Rocky, but that's something that can't get took away either.
Never get that took
Right.
away.
And
That's
I've
right.
been very thankful.
Absolutely. My dad always said he never drove, and he didn't want me to race, but he always said it takes a smarter man to fix that race car more to win.
Yeah.
Anybody can drive it.
Yeah.
That's not true. But
Sometimes I question myself, but I've been very blessed to have been, you know, us racers, we're family.
Absolutely.
I mean, I feel like, you know, we might fuss and fight and argue, but at
But
the
it's
end
like
of the day,
brothers and sisters.
if something
happens
happens
to you, I'm going to be
that's
there
right.
for you.
If something happens,
Yeah.
Mike won, he probably never tell you, but he won the Ice Bowl the year after he lost his dad. And I was so proud of him myself, you know, I was sitting there all smiling, just almost had tears in my
Yeah.
eyes when he won
Oh,
the
I-
race. I was so proud of him.
yeah, and that was a tough day.
Absolutely.
Good day, but it was tough.
All right. Got anything else on this you want to ask, Mike? If not,
We're good.
okay. If not, I guess we'll conclude this episode of Southern Dirt Motorsports, and we ask that you like all these episodes and subscribe to the channel. And for Southern Dirt Motorsports, we'll just sign off. Thanks.